Everybody needs.
Whenever. Okay. Hi, my name is Alexis Howard, and today I'll be speaking on the topic of religious freedom by country. Religious freedom is a fundamental human right. It is because I agree with Pope Francis that I believe my topic today is an important one. Today, my purpose is to inform my audience of the pros and cons of freedom of religion by countries. I believe that this topic is one that every high school and university student should be informed about. I am credible to speak on this topic because I have done plenty of research and because I'm an advocate for religious freedom. Today I will cover the pros and cons of religious freedom by several countries. My pros are mental health improvement and freedom of expression, and my cons are rise of conflicts and loss of culture. Now that I've previewed my main points, I will start with my first pro, mental health improvement. There is not a clear connection between religiosity and the likelihood that people will describe themselves as being in very good overall health. Even after controlling for factors that might affect the results, such as age, income, and gender, there are only 3 countries out of the 26 that actively religious are likely to report better health than everyone else. Those countries are the US, Taiwan, and Mexico. Religiously active people also don't seem to be any healthier by 2 other more specific measures: obesity and frequency of exercise. I got that information from the Pew Research Center. My second point is depression and anxiety. The relationship between spirituality and religiousness and depressive symptoms have been widely investigated, being one of the areas with more evidence than any other mental health outcome. In 2003, a meta-analysis conducted by Smith examined the results of 147 studies that included almost 100,000 participants, finding an average inverse correlation of negative point between SR and depression. The same results were reported in a recent systematic review that included only longitudinal studies. In that review of 152 prospective studies published up to 2017, 49% reported at least one significant association between SR and a better course of depression. 41% showed to be a non-significant association, and 10% indicated an association with more depression, resulting in an overall effect size of D equals negative 0.18 between spirituality and religiousness and depressive symptoms. I got this information from the National Library of Medicine. So far, I have discussed the benefits of mental health improvement. I want to move on to a few negatives. Rise of conflicts. Over the past few decades, the most prominent example of religious freedom conflicts has centered on laws at the federal, state, or local level that prohibit discrimination on various grounds. Why would this be? There are a couple of observations that can help explain this. First, the nature of religious freedom is that it involves appeals to conscience. This may be manifest in a belief that we are accountable to a supreme being or in a commitment to higher principles. This means that religious people do not measure their choices solely by whether they think they can get away with it as a legal technicality. So there is always the possibility that a person of faith might believe a government regulation is at odds with the demands of conscience. Second, and following from the first, religious belief often involves drawing lines. Many religions have formal structures with membership. Most subscribe to commandments or teaching that are obligatory for believers. Third, this line drawing can often be at odds with government priorities. In our country, we favor openness and equal opportunity, but for a religious organization, considerations like membership and good standing can be more important. It may make sense to disregard an applicant's belief when hiring a chef, but not so much when hiring a pastor. Fourth, recent and powerful social trends have placed some choices or statutes related to sexuality, for instance, within the realm of legal protection against discrimination. Even though these are at odds with long-standing religious teachings, so the Catholic Church that would not take race into consideration in hiring may still want to be allowed to make a distinction between an employee who is cohabiting and one who is married. All of this leads to the conflict that often gets the most attention. The concern among people of faith that discrimination laws, including categories like sexual orientation and gender identity, will create duties or prohibitions at odds with the faith commitments of people of faith or religious groups. The parallel concern among people who want to ensure that LGBT people are provided equal treatment is that religious conscience could be used as an excuse for unfair treatment. We see this conflict in the lawsuits over wedding professionals who want to decline to participate in same-sex wedding ceremonies or for religious reasons, or those in which religious schools are sued for firing employees in same-sex marriages. The conflict touches on a wide variety of practices like employment, beliefs, tax exemption, provision of social services, interactions with clients, etc. The concerns related to this conflict have now been dramatically heightened by the U.S. Supreme Court's recent decision that interrupts federal employment law banning discrimination on the basis of sex, as also prohibiting the discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Not only does that decision implicate hiring decisions, there are already lawsuits to expand the reach of other areas of the law, like healthcare, that also prohibit sex discrimination. At the beginning of 2020, 22 states prohibited discrimination in employment on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Now employers in every state are required to follow this legal rule. I got this information from the Sutherland Institute at Birth and New Freedom. You can see how the freedom of religion can negatively affect countries. My final point shows how it can result in issues through the countries. The loss of culture. Under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, states parties must protect people's freedom, either individually or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest their religion or belief in worship, observance, practice, and teaching. In addition, in those states parties in which ethnic, religious, or linguistic minorities exist, persons belonging to such minorities shall not be denied the right in community with the other members of their group to enjoy their own culture, to profess and practice their own religion, or to use their own language. Under the International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, everyone has the right to take part in cultural life, which implies, according to the expert in the field of cultural rights, the right of everyone to access and enjoy cultural heritage. As you can see, there are strong arguments for both sides of the freedom of religion. To recap, I'll briefly restate my two pros and cons again. The freedom of expression through the freedom of religion, mental health improvement, rise of conflicts, and loss of culture. And the purpose of my speech today was to inform you of the pros and cons of freedom of religion by country. Thank you.